Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to this live afternoon safari from the wilds of the Greater Kruger National Park. I was going to attempt to let the sun be on my face, but I find that I become blind immediately, so I'm not going to do that, so please excuse the shadow cast across my once blue eyes. Today, this afternoon, there is some sad news. And as we all, or as the songs to the great, or the words to the great Johnny Clegg song go, as we all know, for something to be born, something must die. And that, of course, is relevant to us today because we come with the news, and I'm sure you on the Twitterverse are aware, one of the Nkuhuma lionesses has been killed, that bringing it to 3 in the last little while. We think it was the 2.5-year-old female, the remaining one, and so that leaves us with 4 adults left in the Nkuhuma Pride. What was once 7 is now 4. In fact, what was once 8 is now 4, because there was one killed in February too. So that's rather tragic, and I'm sorry to have to bring you these sad tidings today. But as I do so, here we have some signs of life, and this is the sign of rebirth. And while it is a cliche, of course, the circle of life comes to mind. Here are the fresh, new green stalks of Xerophyta retinervis, or the baboon's tail. A beautiful flower, and one of the first to flower in the spring. You can shortly expect there to be some purple, purplish and white flowers with a very pleasant smell. Xerophyta retinervis, the baboon's tail. Anyway, that is the update from the springtime. Sad news combined with signs of new life brought on by the first rains of the season. If you have stumbled across this website on this somewhat somber yet relatively cheerful spring day, you are on a live game drive safari with us here at WildEarth TV. My name is James Jeandré. On camera today we have Bryan, all 6'3" of him, topped with a 6'4". topped with a beautiful blue hat. And in the control room today we have Nikki and Louise. They're pushing the buttons and twiddling the knobs, and unfortunately we don't have another vehicle out because Wendy is still being a naughty little girl and is ceasing to function. But on walk we may or may not have visual of Stefan and Scott. They're going to try and see if they can get the walking stuff going, and Eugene, of course, is pottering around in the background and driving around and trying to fix things that are supposed to be working. Right, now, we do love to hear from you. WildEarth TV brings you very live, very interactive game drives. Hashtag Safari Live if you want to tweet to us like a fork-tailed drongo. Or questions at wildearth.tv if you wish to talk to us on the email. We are now going to go, or our plan for the afternoon, is to head off towards where Sindile, I said it again, Bryan, I'm sorry, where Madiba, 1-year-old, or just over 1-year-old male leopard was found this morning, and we're going to see if we can go and spend some time with him. And while we do so, please feel free to interact about the lions. I believe that there's quite a lot of chatter going on. I have chatted to 1 or 2 more experts since we last spoke about the lions, and while nobody is quite clear as to why young males coming into an area do kill lionesses, it would seem that it's not as unusual as we once thought it was. So, sad news on one hand, lions are in turmoil, one is dead. Happy news on the other, we've seen grass sprouts, 1 or 2 new flowers, and there you saw the new shoots of Xerophyta retinervis, the baboon's tail. Right, on we go. Are you ready, Bryan?
I'm ready, James.
Marvellous, marvellous. Here we go. I'm just plugging myself in so that the dulcet tones of Nicky Alston might touch my ears and fill me with glee throughout the course of the afternoon. So we're probably about 10 minutes away from where we saw young Madiba this morning. So please feel we'll stop and see what else we can see. I suspect he's probably lying about the place, although it was a fairly cool day. I think the temperature's probably only about 24 degrees Celsius, if I'm not mistaken. which would put it at roughly, say, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty cool for this time of year for here. That front, we're just feeling the tail end of that cold front that brought us our first beautiful soaking blessing that were the spring rains. I'm just going to quickly talk to Aubrey on the radio, because he of course found Madiba this morning, and I just want to tell him that I'm on my way there. Good afternoon, Aubrey. My route has been Zoe's down to Baranaites. I'm going to try and relocate on the young leopard from this morning. Aubrey, for those of you who don't know, perhaps I didn't explain this the other day, and I think David asked who he was. Aubrey works for the commercial side of Djuma, which is a very beautiful lodge just near where we operate from, just near where Nikki and Louise are sitting as we speak. And Aubrey's one of the guides from there, very experienced, very skilled tracker. And he found the lions here the other day, the Nkuhuma Pride, when they were swelled by one number versus what they are now, and he also found Madiba this morning. It's a magnificent afternoon, very beautiful, very clear, very crisp. I'm just struggling to hear the name from this question, but I think it's Athira or something like that. Athira, if it sounds like your name, that's who I'm speaking to, and of course everyone else. You want to know if Junior is okay. Junior would seem to be okay. I think you'll find he would have scarpered. He wouldn't have made any attempt to fight the lions. It wouldn't be in his nature to take on 4 Birmingham males. So what's happened is that four of those Birmingham males, there seems to have been a slight separation actually, and we'll get onto that a bit later. But 4 of them killed that lioness at 3:30 right next to Simbambili Lodge yesterday. Apparently the lions were running around the rooms, not inside them obviously, but around them, making a huge din. And this morning when they woke up, they found the 4 Birmingham boys eating that female lioness, or certainly sampling her. I don't know if they've eaten her. Hasn't seemed to have been within their general tradition. They've generally killed and moved on. That's an interesting question, and this is the sort of thing we're going to be discussing, I think, for quite a while yet. Wing nut. I don't believe that's the name your parents gave you, but it's quite an interesting Twitter handle. Wingnut, you want to know why it is you want to know why it is that the Birmingham boys, what are the theories? Why are the Birmingham boys coming in and killing lionesses? So, the theories range from the following. That they have come into an area that ordinary conflict situations, say over a kill or something like that, because everybody's hyped up and everybody's, by everybody I mean all the lions, are in a state of stress, that ordinary conflict situations that might occur at kill sites or at general meeting sites are escalating above what they would normally and resulting in death. That's one theory. Another theory is that because of that hyped up nature of things, they are automatically engaging in forms of conflict. So where the lionesses might object to having new males in the area, especially if they behave in a threatening manner, that is spilling over into some kind of angry conflict which is resulting in death. Now what's interesting, those are the sort of 2 main ones. There are 1 or 2 others about limiting lion numbers and that sort of thing, but they don't make any overt evolutionary sense. None of them make any overt evolutionary sense. And as a very famous biologist whose name I can never remember said once, nothing in biology makes sense save but in the light of evolution. And I've certainly found that to be true when I've been trying to study animal behavior and that sort of thing. And I can't make sense of this yet. So any ideas that you might have, please feel free to send them through. The one thing that is interesting though is that it seems that this is only being recorded, or has been recorded in a few other places, but not in other areas of the Kruger National Park, and I find that quite interesting. And like I say, they're at Simbambili, and Simbambili is to the northwest of us, not too far, probably about 5 kilometers as the crow flies. And Mavis, you'd like to know if there are any reports of where they are now. Mavis, we don't know, I'm afraid. I suspect they have probably headed off to the west. That would be the safest place for them to go. But why the Birmingham seem to be targeting them so badly is just, I really don't know. So let's have a debate. Let's try and find some common ground and see if we can't find an answer. Right, now, young Madiba was found in these environs this morning, so I'm rather hoping to go and find him precisely where he was left. Without the aid of another vehicle around, I of course can't go off and try and track him, but then you will be left alone in the wilderness. Well, you'll be with Bryan, but Bryan is not that chatty on camera. So we're right on the southern boundary, so I'm just going to carefully check that he hasn't crossed the road. We're also very close to the western boundary. We can go next door to Arathusa. We can't go south of the road though. Right, well there are lots of tracks going in here, so I think we'll make this our starting point. Bryan, you don't see any others, do you? While we're driving in here trying to see if we can find young Madiba, Debbie on Twitter, you want to know, are lions responsible for wiping out their own species? No, Debbie, they're not. Why we don't understand this behavior, there may well be a very good reason for it. I think you might find that it has something to do with maintaining a certain amount of genetic diversity in the lion population. I'm not sure for certain, but I think that might be one of the things that it has to do with, but I don't think that they are responsible for wiping out their own species. Last time this happened, or in such numbers, was when the Mapocho took over. They were 6 initially young males, and they came into an area and took into this area and took it over, and they killed, I think they killed 6 lionesses, they killed 9 lionesses. So it's not that unusual for this area. Bryan, I don't see any more vehicle tracks. I do, however, feel the beautiful sting of a Sisyphus thorn in my left bicep. Where the tracks go? This is very odd. We will find them eventually, I hope. Going to do turn around. I don't see any other vehicle tracks from here. The best point to start, of course, is going to be from where Scott left it. So throughout this drive I'm going to be thinking quite carefully about what it could possibly be that would drive lions to behave like they are behaving now. And I would encourage you to do the same, and let's combine our enormous collective intellectual might see if we can't come up with something. Watch out there, Bryan. Watch your heads, everyone. Duck down. Hold on to your dentures. Now on some very clear vehicle tracks. So an interesting update from Blair, who says that all 5 Birminghams were present at the murder earlier today, earlier this morning. Blair, you say you got that update from a ranger at Nkoro. That's interesting. The one report we had was from a Tsimbambili ranger, and he said 4, but maybe there's some form of discrepancy there. Bryan, do you see a leopard anywhere? Not currently. Right. Apparently in this Tambuti thicket somewhere, he was reclining on a termite mound. I don't see no termite mounds in here. Oh, there's a termite mound. Must have been where he was or is. Any luck he still is. Sorry, Bryan. I don't see him. Now, apparently he was lying right up upon this termite mound. Like I said, it hasn't been a very hot day, so he may have moved off slightly. We'll just try it. We can't move around too much in here, of course, because it is very thick. Switch off and have a quick listen. We'll just show you where he was. Madiba. Beautiful sounds all around. Some magpie shrikes in the distance. Lovely, gentle, cool breeze blowing through the Tambuti grove. But no panicked sounding birds. Well, I can hear a bit of movement on the other side of the termite mound. If the young leopard isn't there, we'll try and go round the other side. I think it's going to be very tough to get around the other side there. I'm just going to address young Craig on the radio, lest he think he's alone in the wilderness as well. Craig, Scott is not on drive. I am on drive this afternoon. I'm in the area now. He seems to have moved. I'll keep you posted. Copy that. You're welcome. So he's going to come and help me here. Right. Let's just have a look around the other side there. I'll tell you what, I could quite happily sit in this Tambuti grove all afternoon and absorb the glorious, fresh, crisp atmosphere. Oh well, Just another panel, don't worry about. Not many left. Watch your head here. No thorns, everybody. Got the feeling that he's probably just watching us from somewhere very close by. We may, of course, not be able to extract ourselves from here. Watch that. No thorns. A little nervous given how well, precarious the vehicle situation is. You all right, Brian?
I'm good, I'm good.
Don't see the young leopard. I've actually been in this very area before. And he crossed through here and we had to go around the other side. We couldn't get through. And I think Leo Smith tried to get through here once and he got stuck. Sorry, I'm just going to have another listen, everyone. There, I did hear a living creature there. It's not Madiba. It is a crested francolin. Not a great indication of the presence of a young male leopard. He could be anywhere in here. Probably lying up in the shade somewhere. And thank you, John, on Twitter. Madiba may well be hunting. Now, you see, I think that's a pretty good assertion. I think it's highly likely that he wouldn't have stayed still. You know, he's quite a restless fellow at the best of times. He tends to move around and play a bit. He's still quite young. He likes to hunt, and he certainly would seem to be quite successful. He caught himself a little rodent of some sort this morning. Apparently let it go. He may well have wandered off to do some hunting and lain down in a completely different area from this. Anyway, so what we're going to do is try and extract ourselves from here. You can see Bryan turning white at the thought, and we'll move around. We can't obviously move around this thicket, but we can move around the edge of it and see if we can't pick up some tracks. And we'll hang around here for 10 or 20 minutes or so, and if we can't find him, we'll pull out and see what else we can see. Does that sound all right to everybody? I'm pretty sure he's not up there, hey Bryan? Can't see him there. Now, do we reverse out or turn around? I think we have to reverse out, don't we? Turn. Yeah. I had a question a little while back, and it was a good one, about why it is that our vehicles are not automatic in 2015. Because you see us changing gears frantically, and you imagine that if we had an extra hand free, things would be a bit easier. And there are actually very good reasons for it. And the reason basically is, well, they're twofold. First of all, we need the extra control that the gears allow. And because we live in the bush, excuse me, because we live in the bush, quite a long way from sophisticated mechanical equipment, trying to service an electronic 4x4 is very, very difficult. So it's much easier for us to just have the most basic the vehicle, the better. Right, we are now stuck upon a Gymnosporia buxifolia stump. Hopefully not for long. Jack, a very good question to which I hope I know the answer. Sorry about that, Brian. You'd like to know when Wendy is going to be fixed. Are we talking days? Are we talking months? Jack, we hope she'll be fixed tomorrow. The mechanic is coming out. He was supposed to come today, but for some reason wasn't able to make it. So, yeah, we don't know. We have had a mechanic looking at Wendy for the last 2 days, well, ever since she went down. But we needed a special expert to come in from town, and they're obviously booked up, so it's quite difficult for them. So we're hoping by the end of tomorrow, Wendy will be up and running. But because none of us are very skilled mechanics, we don't actually know what the problem is. And so it's difficult to say how long it's going to take before he's actually looked at it. Alright, I think we've exhausted this little spot. I'm just going to call Craig again. I think he was the last in here this morning. Craig, do you copy? Just keep a lookout through here in the shade. Craig, do you copy, Craig? Craig, confirm you came into this area this morning? Checked that area. I just wondered if anybody had been in here since Scott. He's definitely moved, so we're going to have to look around a bit. Copy that. So Scott was the last one in this area, everybody, so I don't think he's been seen moving, but he has definitely moved. Naughty little fellow. I'm afraid we're flying blind at the moment, not being able to go off on foot, but we've done it before, you know. We found him quite readily on a number of occasions. We'll give it a few more minutes and then see what else we can see. I will also, of course, keep you updated if I hear anything about the Lions, the Birminghams, or anyone else. I will keep you posted. So I thought this question might come eventually, and it's a good one. Joyce in New Hampshire, you'd like to know, are we afraid or worried that the Birmingham boys, behaving as they are, hyped up as they are, their blood is up, trying to take over a territory, are we afraid that they might, sort of charge and attack us? Joyce, no, not as such. I'd certainly be a little more reticent about just driving up to them and stopping before I assess their behavior. I think the chances of them jumping onto a vehicle are almost zero. I mean, look, they're not completely zero, but that's the case for every animal that we look at out here. I think what would be more than likely, if they were feeling angry, what they would do is probably charge the vehicle, growl, and then we'd drive away, obviously. So yes, I would be reticent about just driving up to them like we do normal sleeping cats. We just drive up to them and they don't tend to react too much to us. But I would certainly be a lot more careful of assessing the Birmingham's behavior, especially if they'd just been in a conflict. And I've certainly been, I mean, a lot of you would have seen the sighting where the orange-eyed lioness from the Nkuhuma Pride, they'd just been chased off a kill. And when she saw us in the vehicle, she did turn and she looked a bit more carefully, and that seemed to be because her blood was up and she was very hyped. This is where we went in originally. So, two very good questions from Laura and Carla in Costa Rica. Why are the Birmingham boys not targeting Junior? The answer, I suspect, is because Junior is a bit more wily, and he's basically moving away. He won't stand and fight with them. A young male lion is not a fighter. A young male lion is a survivor. And unless he's in a big group, he's going to be extremely reticent to take anyone on. So I suspect what happens is that he just, when he hears them coming, he gets out of there. The females, because they have a bit more to lose in terms of, clearly the Birminghams are trying to kill off, or kill them off, kill off the young ones especially, it would seem, they will probably stand and have more conflict than would, say, Junior, who will just get out of the way. If they come across him and find him on his own, obviously he presents something more of a difficult target because he's much bigger. I actually think he's going to turn out to be bigger than they are. But they would definitely have a go at him. They'll definitely try and kill him. Interesting thoughts from Terry Williams on Twitter. Terry, when I initially heard of your theory, I thought, no, I don't think so. But having considered it for the 3 seconds that I have, you may be onto something. Terry thinks that perhaps the Birmingham boys can sense Junior on the other lionesses, that sort of male essence. Can they smell male essence versus female? I would say absolutely they could. Would that affect their behavior towards a female? Maybe it would. That's a very interesting thought, Terry. I'm just looking for a couple of tracks to see if the leopard hasn't crossed out of this area. And we'll go back around and look around that area there. Ellen is agreeing with Terry Williams that perhaps it has got something to do with Junior and the fact that he has sort of left his scent, if you like, on the females of the Nkuhuma Pride. It's possible. I'm just going to give it some thought. And then I'm just quickly looking into the block here. A question all the way from Deborah in Kentucky, who would like to know, is it possible that they were pregnant and that's why they were killed? Again, it begs the question, can they tell if a lioness is pregnant or not? And the answer is probably they can, you know. Again, the olfactory senses of these cats are so powerful, and there's no question that, well, we know that dolphins can tell a pregnant woman from an unpregnant, or can you be unpregnant, right? From a not pregnant woman, and we know, and you would imagine therefore that animals of their own species can tell the same thing, and so it's possible that they're able to tell whether a lioness is pregnant, and that may be resulting in her death. Yeah, maybe. I think that those youngsters though are too young to have been pregnant. They're not even 2 yet, and so yeah, I don't think that's the reason, because it's the 2 youngsters and an adult who've been killed in the last little while, and then another adult in February. All interesting thoughts. Certainly, one of the things that has evolved in a lot of mammals, certainly in primates, to reduce infanticide. And we've talked a lot about infanticide lately because of this lion takeover. And certainly in human beings, for example, and in our closest relatives, the bonobos and chimpanzees, estrus is hidden. So men, there's no overt sign that a female is an estrus. So unlike a baboon, which develops a rather alarming swelling on the bottom when she goes into estrus, and so advertising her status to dominant males of the area, the same does not occur for human beings or chimps or bonobos and animals like that. And that is to avoid males knowing whether the female is pregnant or not, and therefore to hide paternity, and in so doing avoid infanticide. Now, it seems to me that in a species such as lions, where while estrus is most definitely not hidden because the females advertise their estrus with urine, it seems to me that where infanticide plays such an enormous role in lion society, why is it that where other species have evolved this ability to hide pregnancy for a while, why wouldn't lions have done the same? I don't know. I'm just saying that perhaps I'm not sure that they can tell necessarily that the lionesses are pregnant, but it's definitely something to think about. This is good debate, people. I think we'll come up with the answer yet. I do wish we could do it while we were looking at Sindile, though. Madiba. We look for young recalcitrants in Madiba. I keep wanting to call him Sindile. I just cannot get used to it. I will eventually. I'm a bit slow, but I'm not very good with change. Lynn in Ontario, in Canada, you would like to know... sorry, I'm just checking for some tracks here. Nothing there. You want to know, Lynn, why it is, or will... the fact that they are now reduced to 4 lionesses and junior, will they not hunt buffalo anymore? If junior stays with them, I think they will continue to hunt buffalo. Now remember that they were hunting buffalo still with 5 of them, and one of them being just over, well, not yet 2-year-old lioness, so she wouldn't have been a great help on the buffalo kills. So yeah, I think they probably will, but what's interesting is that the hunting efficiency won't go down. But as you surmise, the prey size that they choose might go down, but the actual efficiency of their hunting won't go down at all. And it'll only go down when they get down to 2 lionesses. I'm seeing no evidence of young Madiba. We're going to do one more drive through the block and then leave him to hide from us. And see what else we might be able to see. I think a sojourn onto Arathusa might be in order. What say you, Bryan? I'm just going to do a little nip through here. It's not that thick through here. We'll just see if we can't pick something up. Lovely smell of petrichor here. Petrichor, as you all keep reminding me, is this beautiful smell that the earth gives off after it's rained for the first time. Well, every time it rains, not really, it's not only for the first time. I actually think that we should stick closer to the drainage line there. John, you say that I should start calling out for Sindile. I think that's actually probably quite a good name for him. Sindile. Maybe he will come out and say hello to his old friend, me. seen him right where I'm driving now before. I do not see him now. So the leopards will like to move sort of up and down these drainage lines, especially if they're looking to try and hunt something. And of course he's so used to vehicles now, he will hardly react unless we drive over his tail, then he might. So he's not likely to sort of start and jump out of a bush. Watch your head there. Carefully in there. I'm just going to stop and have another little listen. Always a good idea to listen. A bird alarm calling, or a squirrel, or a dwarf mongoose. Or the deathly silence. Don't see the little fella. We'll carry on. I think Scott is on foot and he may well come into this area. See if he can't help us out. Last ditch attempt. Bryan, look at the grass that's coming up there. That's 2 days worth. How's that? Look at that, everybody. Look at that beautiful new grass shoots that have come up in 2 days. That's all it's taken. 2 days of sun after the first spring rains. Lovely. Go ahead, Craig. No, nothing, I'm afraid. Copy. I might have to pull out of the area fairly soon. Beautiful. And did a very brief drive down there, about 100 meters from the junction. I didn't see anything, but there has been a lot of traffic. So that grass will now be grazed fairly readily, especially by animals that are pretty close to the ground and animals that are perhaps a little bit more affected by the effects of the dry season. And warthogs would certainly be one of those. Duiker would be one of those. Steenbok would be very happy to find fresh grass like that. So all sorts of different animals. All right, we're going to have one more look through this area, and the good news is that Scott is on bushwalk. The camera is working. Whether you'll be able to hear his tones or not, I'm not sure. But we'll send you across to him, and I will continue on the search, and then we'll see when we get back to you. Bye bye, and enjoy Scott.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to the bush walk for this afternoon. My name is Scott, you haven't met me before. I teamed up with Jeandré on camera. I've got my trusty wind that Stefan used before. As you can see, the wind is blowing in the same direction that we're going to be walking in shortly, so we are going to factor that into the equation. And what this sock is it's just a sock with some ash from our campfire, and it's a great way to be able to know where the wind is blowing, and we factor that into our equation when on foot. When we are walking through the bush, we have to be very, very cautious. It is not quite the same as being in the vehicle, and that is why, because we aren't going to be staying close to the vehicle this afternoon, we've got an extra person on the team. So Jeandré is going to move across, and you'll see a familiar face, a lot of you. This is Stefan, and he'll be carrying a rifle. It's a last resort in case we do get into a dangerous situation. It's unlikely that we will need to use a rifle. There is a chance that some dangerous animals, elephant, buffalo, lion, or leopard, could potentially try and attack us. And like I said, even chances are very small. And aids like the sock, knowledge, we will avoid at all costs contact with any animal. So our aim is not necessarily to get you close to animals, it's simply to find the bigger animals and get away and call James in to view them, and we're going to focus on finding you and getting you close to smaller things that you can see from the vehicle. That is our goal. It's not to get dangerous situations, and we will avoid at all costs, but you never know, things could go wrong. So this is going to be walking behind the cameras in case that unfortuitous event does happen, and we're going to continue slowly walking in this direction. And the reason why we've come into this area is twofold. We had tracks of a female leopard, quite possibly Shadow, the mother of the leopard that James is currently looking for, young Madiba. And her tracks were actually heading in his direction. We only found them this morning, and there weren't many tracks to see because the ground has been very hard on the rain, almost like a cement would be powdery till water's added, and then it's solidifies. That's what we're experiencing here, with not only the roads but also the pathways that animals travel along. So it's not going to be easy for us to see or even show you any tracks, but we are going to head in this general direction, stopping, listening. Alarm calls can be very useful for us in finding predators. We're going to be listening for the calls of oxpeckers, which will help us to, help alert us to animals like and the buffalo, which they on. So that's a way that we can avoid getting into a dangerous situation, listening to the sounds and the signs around us. Let's continue. It's quite open here for the time, and because the vegetation is very dry, it's a time of the year to be on foot because we can see a lot further than we will be able to see in the coming months. I believe James has just showed you some new shoots of grass that are popping up, and isn't it incredible how quickly after the rain, just within 48 hours, those new shoots are emerging. I'm going to try and plan my recording because Jeandré got a pack on. It's about 20 pounds. Out of this backpack is a tenner. Jeandré is a big, stands about 6 feet, and that pole stands another 4 above him. And we get them up in trees, something that I'm going to have used to. It's Stefan did wonderfully when I was on camera when he was doing the bush walks a few months ago. And I believe the audio isn't great, so apologies. It is a never-ending project trying to fine-tune things. But because the audio is not great, I'm not going to say anything, but I'd like to take you up onto this termite mound to give you a little bit of a view and of this area. We're going to send you back to James. But come up and mind the step. There's a few uneven spots here. So I'm putting Jeandré right into the deep end. And at least from up here, you can get an idea of the scenery and the surroundings, and you also get an idea why animals like leopard will so often come up onto these termite mounds, and very happy to hear you can now hear me again. And even though it's just a few meters above the ground, you can see so much further and not only detect potential prey for the leopard, but also any threats, lion, other leopard. It's just a great point for them to come up and examine their surroundings with a bit of a vantage point. And because this was the closest termite mound to where we had the last tracks, we do this kind of guesswork tracking, and you kind of turn into a leopard. And because we see leopard and view them for so many hours, following them in vehicles, we get a very good idea of how they may actually move. And I'm now slipping into leopard brain and thinking, if I was a leopard heading in this direction, where would be the points that I go to? So this is the first point that I'm hoping the leopard would have come to. And from here, I'm going to look around and look for another likely spot that a leopard would to. Now, while we're up here and the view's so beautiful, we're going to take you on a bit of a 360. So I'm just going to leave Jeandré to show you around. This area of Djuma is one of our viewpoints where you get a little bit of elevated ground and you get an idea of the expansive wilderness around us. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that little 360 view, and isn't it so much fun being on foot? I can't tell you how happy I am to be doing this, just something a little bit different, and it's great to have you guys with us. So apologies if the audio descends as we dip down here, but we are not going to take you for this next step. We're going to send you back to James and try and get closer into that area of where Madiba was last seen this morning. I actually left him there, so I've got a good idea of exactly where he was, and hopefully with the three of us, including Stef, we'll be able to find some tracks or signs of him, and we're going to be working that area with James and get a hold of you as soon as we have any luck or anything interesting along the way. But enough for now, and we will see you all later. Enjoy, James, and wish us luck.
Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm glad it seems that the bushwalk equipment was functioning today, which is excellent news indeed. We have left the area where Madiba was, or is, or could be, and Scott will probably go down there and see if he can't find him on foot. I think that's the best option, and we will drive around terra incognito to the west. We're now on Arathusa in the hopes of finding something else entertaining for our afternoon. I have spotted a vulture. I think it's the one that lives in the nest there, and we'll see if we can't find something there. The radio is going in my ear, but I'm afraid at this stage I'm unable to make head nor tail of what is being said. So we'll get a little bit deeper into Arathusa and perhaps all around us there's little signs of spring are starting to show after the rains, bits and pieces of grass that are turning green, the odd tree that's starting to flush. And I'm still surprised by that how few knobthorns I've seen in flower. And Stefan was just saying he was in the Kruger earlier on the weekend with his little boy, and they found all sorts of trees in various kinds of flower. The wisterias, I think, and the shambok pods. But here they seem to be holding off for some reason. Not sure why that is. Quite a lot of looks like vulture activity, but it may just be birds from a nest just up ahead here. Go and see what's going on. See that, Bryan? Big bird up there. And there was one in a nest here. I think it was in a nest. There's the nest. There is the vulture in its nest. A white-backed vulture. Get my powerful binoculars. So white-backed vulture clearly sitting on nest, maybe with youngster in there. I know we have seen this nest a few times, and I'm sure the baby is nestling under its mum. Right. So from what I can understand from the radio, everybody, those Birmingham boys are now on Simbambili, of course, which is a place we are not allowed to go, but it's just to the northwest of us. I will keep you posted on any movements that they might have. They seem to be, well, doing what they do best. Well, other than kill, I mean. They're fast asleep. So I will keep you posted. It was one of the reasons I wanted to come across here. Another big bird over there, and it looks to me like it's a batelier. Bateliers are often pretty good indicators of a carrion, especially if they're surrounded by either a tawny eagle or some vulture activity. Flies everywhere. There's the batelier, everybody. Sorry, Brian, it's not a great view. I'm afraid you're going to have to look through the trees to see it. Beautiful, beautiful bird. My favorite raptor out here. And they're often, with tawny eagles, the first to find carrion. But I don't see any tawnies, and I don't see any further vulture activity. It's just the one that's sitting in the nest looking after its youngster, I suspect, because it's been so chilly. Right, let us carry on gently. Well, it would seem that everybody from Arathusa and Simbambili is heading to the north at a great speed to go and watch the somewhat violent Birmingham boys. So we may have this whole reserve to ourselves, which is very nice. I do like that. Right, our next port of call will be the Arathusa Airstrip. Perhaps we'll pick up tracks of Shadow, Madiba's mother. She does tend to knock about these parts. Oh, right. There's a pig looking at you with a lot of little baby pigs. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? I was going to say they very seldom stand still for long enough for us to have a look at them like that, and as you can see, they very seldom stand still for long enough for us to have a look at them. So there were two little piglets there as well, and the female, and then I think a boar off in the background there. And that's the general makeup of a sounder. A sounder is a group of pigs, and the boar's not always around. Sometimes two females and their babies. Sometimes a boar joins them, sometimes he doesn't. They're not, I don't think they're right up there with Father of the Year, but they're certainly, they're better than some. Now, back to the lions. Jeannie in New Hampshire, second viewer from New Hampshire today. Jeannie, you want to know when will we know when the takeover is complete? How will we know that the lions have taken the area over and things will settle down to sort of relative normality? Jeannie, we will only know when either the Matimbas are dead or we've stopped seeing them and we've stopped hearing news of them. So at the moment we know that they're on Mala Mala. One of them killed a lioness the other day, and I'm sure that's a result of the fact that they're just feeling extremely threatened and their blood is up. One of them made a kill at Londolozi, which is south of the river and west of Mala Mala. And on Mala Mala, I think the other one is, or certainly was, and I think they're both on Mala Mala at the moment. Smell waterbuck. So Jeannie, only when we stop seeing the Matimbas, or when they've actually had a territorial conflict and they've been killed by the Birminghams, will the territorial takeover, Bryan, be truly over. So Beth in Boston, another sort of theory along the lines of much of what we've been saying, is that is it possible that the Birmingham boys are just more stressed and that's why they're being more violent? I think that is a real possibility, rather than them being more violent by nature. I think also the number of them, the fact that there are 5 of them together, they probably get each other's blood up too, and that may be another reason for it. So Beth, yes, I think well possible that their increased stress levels are definitely causing them to be more violent than they might be otherwise. There was that other group, like I mentioned, the Mapocho, who killed 9 or 10 lionesses during the course of their takeover. And it's not uncommon for there to be a coalition of 6. It's not that common. And they're the skybed males, of course, up in Manileti. I believe there are 9 of them. One hates to think what they would do if they came into an area like this. They might find themselves living in a monastery before very long. So my last sighting of Madiba was around here, where we are now. But he's obviously not here now. But I'm hoping maybe his mum is. So we did see some warthogs, a little sounder recently, briefly, before they ran off, as is their wont. Very seldom sit still. The other pig that we get in this area, well, not really this area, in South Africa, is a bush pig. They have been seen once or twice around here. And Ginny, you want to know what's the difference between the two. A bush pig is bigger, can be up to, I think about 120 to 130 kilograms, fluffier, hairier, generally more solitary, and also much more omnivorous. Now, while a warthog will definitely sup on carrion every so often if it feels the need, a bush pig is a completely omnivorous pig, just like a wild boar. I'll try and find you a picture when we stop and have a look at these Impala, just to our left on the side. Try and get you, I think they're moving through here. There we go, some Impalas. Find you a picture of a bush pig versus a warthog. They're definitely members of the same family, but they are not the same animal by any stretch. So the impala, of course, are frolicking about in the glory of this crystalline sort of early spring afternoon, so made by the glorious rain we had the other day. And they'll be really reveling on the new shoots that are popping up all over the place. They'll be finding them a lot more efficiently than we will, I suspect. And this over here is a bush pig. It's not really, that's a whale. There is a bush pig there. So they stand at the shoulder about 1.5 meters tall. So in feet, that's almost, that's quite tall. That's about, what is it, 3 foot 3 plus 1 foot 5, 1 foot 6, 4 foot 9. They stand about 4 foot 9 high, so they're pretty tall. That's a bush pig there. There's a warthog, and sorry about the shadow. But the one thing I do love about the both of them, but mainly the bush pig, is the Latin name there, Potamoceras porcus. Potamoceras porcus is the bush pig, versus Phacoceras aethiopicus being the warthog. There we go. That is the warthog and the bush pig, the only two pigs that we get in this area. I've forgotten, do you remember at all what aethiopicus means? It means south. It doesn't mean south. Australis means south. If you can perhaps check on your googlies around the world on what aethiopicum or aethiopicus means, what the root of that word means. I've forgotten what it is. Quite a few organisms out here that are called aethiopicus, and I think it's got to do with the habitat or the vegetation, or perhaps the area that we're in. Right, look behind us. There's a Burchell starling sitting in a puddle. We're going to very gingerly try and show it to you. Bryan is moving with the stealth of a leopard on the hunt. I think you'll see it. The car is just in the wrong position, I'm afraid. I've parked it. It's right by dash. Okay, I'm going to try and reverse, but I think it's going to fly as soon as I stop. Starling. He's so close there that you can see he's loving this water. And you can see him still. Yes, look at that. That's wonderful. Having a bath. Everyone loves the new water that the spring brings. This is so special, everyone. He'll have a drink, and he'll wet his feathers. Bryan, will you just... he's disappeared. Well, he hasn't... He's actually still next to us, of course, but so close that we can't really do anything about it. Now, it looks pretty black because of the way the light is, but he's actually iridescent blue and purple and green. Isn't that wonderful? He's got so used to us now. So birds bath, I think, pretty much for the same reasons as we do, you know. They do it to cool down a bit, so that's a bit to have a swim, but it's not very hot today. So you may be doing it for a bit of a cool down, but they also do it to get clean. They, of course, are covered in various kinds of parasites, and having a bath like that probably helps them to get rid of that. And then they will go and preen properly and clean all the feathers nicely with their beaks and re-oil them from the oil glands that occur mainly under their wings, and they help. That just helps to keep the feathers in good nick. And of course the feathers have to be maintained fastidiously, because for flight, of course, you can't have feathers that are badly maintained. It'd be like not maintaining an aeroplane, and that of course has tragic consequences. Wonderful sighting, highlight of the day so far. Thank you, Bryan. That is the Burchell starling. There is the pig. This is wonderful. Lots of pigs all over the place. This one's got 3 piglets. Now what I find astonishing about this is that this warthog has got 3 piglets that are probably at least a month or 2 old. At least, maybe even 3 months old. And I find it bizarre that a warthog would have chosen to give birth, or I mean, I don't mean this consciously, of course, but that warthogs would give birth during the height of the winter season, because they are, of all the animals out here, tend to be the most vulnerable to droughts. I would think that there probably is there's definitely a birthing peak during the summertime. So this is, I would say, is fairly odd, although, I mean, the last warthog we saw about half an hour ago also had piglets, even smaller than this one. I think they're eating some fresh shoots there. Digging a bit. Yeah, they're pulling off the new grass. You probably can't see it quite there. I'm looking with my binoculars, and they are definitely fossicking around for the new grass, and they'll also dig for the rhizomes, which are the underground stems that grasses have, and they store all the nutrients that a grass needs to grow. And quite a nice view there. You can see there the hair that sticks out the side of a warthog's face, a female warthog's face, and that is to make them look a bit bigger and to make the tusks, I think, look a little more intimidating than they might actually be. Beautiful the way the light is catching that. Thank you, Judith, on Twitter. Aethiopicus means literally from Ethiopia, but in scientific terms, when it's used to refer to an animal or a plant, it means south of the Sahara in Africa. Aethiopicus, thank you very much. And for those of you who just joined us, we asked that question because these warthogs have the name Phacocerus aethiopicus. I don't know what Phacocerus means. It probably means eats anything. Beautiful young warthog, look at that. Very sleek for a warthog, that one, wouldn't you say, Bryan? So we're having quite a few pig questions today. It's unusual, very pleasant to have unusual questions. Glenn, you want to know if a bush pig is the same as a forest pig that you saw in Uganda. I'm very pleased that you've been to Uganda and to Africa. It's not the same. I'm going to try and find you a picture of both. I have a mammal app. It's not a particularly impressive one, but I will just try and find you the pigs. There we go. Giant hog, I think, is what you probably looked at in Uganda, I think. Let me just check that that is the case. Yes, seems to be found in Uganda. In the forests. Bryan. I'm not sure if we'll get this. This mammal app that I have, and that there is the giant hog, and it says it's found in the forests. And so perhaps, Glenn, is that what you saw? It looks like quite an impressive beast. And I'll just quickly flick through them. There, of course, is Phacoceros ethiopicus, the common warthog. No, we don't want that. I'm not very good with this thing. And there's the red river hog, which I don't think is what you meant. That's the other one of the other pigs. And that is the bush pig. You can see a very kind of a hairy version of the warthog. Wild boar, maybe that's what you saw. Yeah, I think it's probably the wild boar that you saw. There he is. Thank you, Glenn, for your question on the pigs. The little one is now out again. We'll just go across to him. Hello, Paul on Twitter. A question about pigs from Paul. Paul, you want to know, are they territorial, these warthogs? Paul, they're not really, you know. They'll have a home range that's fairly defined, but they don't actively defend it against other pigs. Boars will probably have a conflict over females and mating rights, but they don't tend to be particularly territorial. So they won't mark a territory, and they won't defend territory against conspecifics. Now, conspecifics means against other animals of the same species. So no, Paul, they're not territorial. They will have various dens throughout their home range that they may or may not share with sound. And the sounders, of course, are not fixed social arrangements like a pride of lions would be. They do move around and break up and come back together and all that sort of thing. Right, let us press on towards the airstrip. See if there isn't something running along it like a wild dog. And Jenny, just as we get a last view of those warthogs, you want to know if a bush pig doesn't have curly tusks. No, it doesn't have curly tusks. It does have vicious, like all pigs, it has very vicious bottom canines that are used extensively for defense. And if you should ever find yourself set upon by a warthog, it wouldn't be the top tusks that you had to worry about. It would be the bottom ones. The bottom ones are razor sharp, and they occlude against the top tusks, and that makes them very sharp and very intimidating. And that, if you're ever attacked by a warthog, is what's going to cause you trouble. I think it's probably unlikely that you'll be attacked by a warthog, but should the eventuality occur, that's what you should watch out for. And you can just see the hair on their backs also sticking up in the beautiful light. It's a glorious afternoon. Right, here we go. Marvellous pig sighting. Haven't had one of these for a long time. Most peaceful and tranquil afternoon. So the reason for checking the airstrip would be because it's like a big clearing, and so some animals will come out onto it purposely because they can see what's going on. Things like wild dogs or cheetahs would definitely come, and they knew the area, would come past it just to check if there was anything on it. So it's always a good idea just to check what's happening. This airstrip, of course, is... Oh, look at that. Oh, goodness, look at this giraffe trying to mate. That is fantastic. Oh, this is a very rare sight, everyone. Well, it could be a rare sight. Stop there. Stop moving now. I say giraffe trying to mate. What I mean is he is trying to mate. And she is, well, she's giving him the cold hindquarter. Now you'll find that she's probably coming into estrus. She might not be quite ready yet, and that's why she's not doing anything. We're not too far from the edge of the airstrip, so I'm going to try and keep up with him. But if I try and go off-road after them, they'll definitely run away. She's now running. We don't see this often. I mean, this time of year, I suppose it's not that uncommon. Sorry, Bryan. Just go back a little touch. Look at that beautiful shot. Oh, that's so sweet. Hello, young couple. She's certainly making him work though. Wonderful the way they move. I'm hoping they're going to pop out onto the airstrip here. She does look like she's coming this way. I'm just going to stop and wait and see if she doesn't come across the road onto the airstrip, which would be wonderful. What's interesting is that every time she stops, he doesn't tend to know what to do. He seems to walk past her and then look confused. Here we go. I'm just going to let them go through that thicket, everyone. I'm not going to move until I think they're going out into the open. She might be searching for some privacy, of course. No, she turned south now. Let's carry on a little bit. And you can so clearly see which one the bull is, simply from the size. When you see them individually on their own, sometimes it's not that clear. They just look like giraffe, and they look like they're the same height as each other, but you can see very clearly there's an adult bull and an adult cow, and the cow is much, much bigger. At least the bull is much, much bigger than the cow. Come on, chaps, come out into the open. Let's have a good look at you. Giraffe are very curious all the time, so they will definitely have had a good look at us. Here's a bull on a mission, that fellow. Let's carry on down the side. She is having none of it. He's also much heavier than she is, of course. He's about 1.4 tons, and she will be probably 900 kilos to 1.1 tons. And a ton, for those of you who don't work in that metric, is 1,000 kilograms, so about 2,200 pounds. Some impalas up ahead. Alas, the giraffe are disappearing off, I'm afraid. Everywhere there are little puddles of water. Wonderful. Now John and Elizabeth and Patty, you say that he's persistent. Yes, he is. Elizabeth and Patty, I think you said that he's showing typical male behavior. And while you're probably trying to make a joke, or are making a joke, you're not wrong. He's showing completely typical male behavior of mammals throughout the world, and indeed many birds. It is the male who does the seducing, i.e. the male who is trying to convince the female to allow him to mate with her. And that, in the mammal kingdom, is almost universally how it happens. The birds are a little bit different, some of them, but many are the same. Think of a peacock. Think of all the brightly colored male birds there are that have their colors to try and seduce females. That's exactly what's going on here. This male is, while he doesn't look like he's very good at seducing, that is precisely what he's trying to do. Should we go a little bit forward? Might get a view down this track. Now they're sharing a bite to eat. Drive down here. It isn't really a road, but we'll go and have a look. Please excuse the excavations that you will see. They are part of the airstrip modifications at Arathusa. So Patty, you're absolutely bang on. Exactly what you're seeing. And while you probably meant it as a joke, you were completely truthful. What's interesting to me also is that when she turns away, when he turns away, she kind of turns towards him as if to say, she turns away from, when he turns away, she turns towards him as if to say, are you giving up already? I'm going to go out onto the airstrip line. Let's get back a little. Just catching them in the glorious golden sunlight here. I'm not going to go any closer until they do come out into the open. I'm really hoping they're going to. Is that all right for you, Brian? Not great, but let's just hope that they come out into the open. So, just on the subject of the sort of seduction and the typical nature of male behavior, we do a lot of anthropomorphizing of animals out here, and we do that for a very good reason. I do it myself, and that's because we want to identify with animals, especially with some of the mammals that we find so iconic and so beautiful. Look at that, here she comes. And so many of the behaviors that we as human beings sometimes don't understand can be explained by studying animals and then sort of applying them to our lives and doing the opposite of anthropomorphizing. Isn't that lovely? You can also see very clearly the differences in the horn shape. Females, little horns, males, much thicker and fatter. Very carefully stepping over the ditch. And Elizabeth, you want to know, will she eventually shake him off, or will he follow her endlessly? He won't follow her endlessly. I think that if she is in estrus, he'll follow her until he no longer senses she's in estrus, or he gets too hungry to carry on. But basically they have very little to do with each other, male and female giraffe, until a female comes into estrus, and then it's all go. Just turn around a bit. And the gestation period is about, it's not unusual, of course. The gestation period for a giraffe is the only ruminant, i.e. animal that chews the cud, that has a gestation period longer than a year. So they have a gestation period of about 13 months, which means that if they mate now, they'll be just in time for the rain next year. So it's a pretty good time for them to mate. I'm afraid I can't cross this spanky new airstrip without going all the way around it. So we're going to speed down to the southern end and come up and hope we still have them here. Perhaps he's going to have a drink. Hold on tight, don't spill your drinks. We're going to move quite fast. Ditch here we can't cross. Constitutes a road, but we'll pretend it does. Right, there they are, the giraffe, beautifully lined in front of us. Can you see them? Yes, just. Having a drink from one of the puddles. If I were her, I would be trying to drink somewhere else. Bryan, where do you want me?
Where do you feel better?
Do you want a backlighter, or do you want to go this way? What does definitely want to have a drink, and I say she's picking the wrong spot here because I think there's going to be quite a lot of runoff from this airstrip. There we go. Now watching a giraffe drink, if you've never seen it before, is an astonishing thing. Look at the way she has to spread her legs. This is wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. He is obviously now taking his opportunity. And she'll flick her head like that because she's got to get the blood that rushes down into her brain. Now there's blood now pumping into her brain because her heart is enormous. Now watch her flick her head as she stops drinking. And what that does is to help to push the blood back out of the brain and down in towards the heart. The pressure build-up when they put their heads on the ground is enormous. So they can't keep their heads down for too long. This is the equivalent of a human being male harassing a woman at a bar. Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing here. Isn't that wonderful? Tongues, lengthy tongues, some of the longest tongues in the animal kingdom. She's trying desperately to get him away, but he just is not interested in learning. We are all the same. You saw there how he tried to back her up against the water so she couldn't leave. That's wonderful. As we see them running off into the into the distance there, Mauricia, you want to know if another male was to come around, would they fight, or would she just choose between them? Mauricia, I think they'd definitely fight. Giraffe are famed for their fighting. This is astonishing. I'm just going to turn, sorry, I'll turn slightly so that you don't get the back end of the car. But he's trying desperately to herd her, like a sheepdog might sheep. I've never seen this before. So they do fight a lot, Maurizia. The males slam their heads and necks against each other. They kind of swing that huge neck against another bull, and it makes a whacking sound. I've often seen it. I've seen it once quite seriously. Normally it's just kind of necking, it looks like. Well, not necking in the traditional sense, but it's certainly it is necking of sorts. But then when they get really angry, they really do smash their heads into their opposition's neck. Don't want to get too close because they definitely are sort of moving away from us a bit. Oh, look at the color on them. That is just beautiful. I think she's quite a lot older than him, you know. He looks like a bull in prime shape. I think she's a bit older. You can see her skin's not in quite as good a condition. Now you see, he wouldn't be doing that unless she was coming into some kind of estrus. She might not be fully there. And like I said, similar with human beings, she will make him work for the opportunity to mate. And that just, there's a really good evolutionary purpose behind that. Because what it does is that it proves that he is a male worth his salt. He's not flighty, he's probably got good genes. Exactly in the same way as in human society, well, sometimes we men are required to work quite hard, and that's for good reason. Isn't that wonderful? I'm going to let them go off into the bush there. I'm not going to follow them off road through there. see away there off to the west, crystalline clear air. She's really had enough now. Oh, thank you, Arathusa. That was wonderful. Beautiful shot, Bryan. Isn't that wonderful? And we were just perfectly positioned, luckily, here on the top where we could watch them run down the ridge, or down the slope towards the trough there. Right, good. Well, Arathusa seems to be treating us with kindness this afternoon, so I think we'll carry on into Arathusa and see what else it has to offer. Bob, you are absolutely correct. You say that giraffe may need a restraining order. Absolutely it might. I'm just going to move away from those shouting birds because they may have a nest here. Those are called crowned lapwings, and they do make nests that are completely invisible just about to the naked eye. Now, we were talking briefly earlier about the fact that when she came to drink here, she put her head down and she had to flick it up to get the blood out of her brain, because the heart, of course, is so big in order to plant blood. Oh, listen, frogs. Now, I'm not very good on I will get back to your question, Bonnie. I'm not very good on my frog calls. I think that's a grass frog calling though. You can hear clicking, click, click, click. This is the first frogs I've heard. I know Brent heard some the other night, but these are the first ones I've heard. So exciting. I might actually be able to see one. There is one there, Bryan. I think it's a frog and not a piece of mud. Can you see that thing just sticking out? That's it. There you go, right in the middle of your screen. You can see a little pimple on the water's surface. That's it. I think that might be a frog. Or do you think it's a piece of mud?
Difficult to say.
If it's difficult to say, we're going to claim it as a frog. It's certainly a very static frog if it is. Oh, look, it went under. Yes, well done. It was a frog. I think they're called grass frogs, these things that are making this noise, clicking sound. But I will confirm. So Bonnie, we were watching the giraffe drink, and we saw how she had to flick her head back. Now, a giraffe has an enormous heart, because obviously to get blood all the way to the brain, up that long neck, it's got to be able to pump with great strength. And so were it to lie down, Bonnie, and your question is, do they sleep lying down? They do, but they don't put their heads down. If they put their heads down like that, the brain would eventually explode, and that would be a fairly unpleasant occurrence, I imagine, if you were a giraffe. And so what they do is they sleep, they fold their legs up underneath them, and they put their heads up in the air, and that's basically how they manage to do it. Right, while we carry on into Arathusa and see what we can find, we're going to nip across to Scott. He is still on foot, and we'll get an update hopefully on where or if Madiba is around. See you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and sadly we have not had any luck tracking down young Madiba. We've been on foot in this area for about half an hour. It's very, very thick, so instead of moving through the thick bush, we've been skirting around the periphery of it, stopping and listening, hoping possibly birds or squirrels or dwarf mongooses could alert us to his position. But all has been quiet in terms of alarm calls, and we've had no clues as to where he could be. And like I said earlier, because of the recent rains we've had, the soil is incredibly difficult. And where we step, it's very difficult to see. I've even been pushing down as hard as I can, and even then you can see very little evidence that I've been here. I probably weigh maybe twice as much, probably not that much, but probably, yeah, roughly twice the weight of young Sindile. He's probably around 40 kilograms at the moment, and I'm double that, so with a bit of change. So that's what makes it tricky about tracking the animals after rains, and we're going to continue to have our work cut out for us in the summer months. But it certainly has been wonderful to spend time on foot. There's been a lot of bird chorus and a lot of excitement as we snuck through the thick Tambuti clusters that line the little riverbed where we last saw him. Now, we would love to carry on helping to find Madiba, to get you guys in there with the vehicle, with James, for some close views. But unfortunately, time is against us, and the sun is beginning to dip down below the horizon, and we've still got some distance to cover before we get back to the vehicle, which was left about 2 miles away from here. So we're going to, rather than being in a situation where we have to rush through the bush, it's very important to keep track of time so that we don't find ourselves rushing that last leg of the trip back to the vehicle, because when you rush in the bush, that is when you get yourself into trouble. If you move very slowly, you can only get yourself into trouble slowly. And you'd rather get into trouble slowly than quickly, because then you can kind of backtrack and have time to make the right plans. So it's something very important to remember when on foot. So we've been keeping a close eye on the sun and are going to now head off with the trusty windsock. The wind is still blowing in the same direction from north to south, so not changed from earlier on. And now we're going to be walking directly back into the wind. Good. So come along, we'll see what we can find along the way. And we're probably going to take a slightly different route back to the I can hear Stef, who's just behind us a few meters, and he's quietly going so trying to make natural noises. Earlier we were speaking in guinea fowl to one another, and that way in the thick bush, when I couldn't see him, even though he was close, I knew exactly where he was. So that's a good way of communicating with other people when you are walking and tracking, because you do need to sometimes split up to cover more ground, staying close together and always just keeping track of where each other person is, and that way knowing if something does go wrong or if they do find an animal, you've got a good idea of where they may be. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's found. Sorry, Jeandré, I'm taking a bit of a gauntlet here. On the left, we've got buffalo thorn, which have got a combination of hooked thorns and straight thorns. You don't want to get tangled up in one of these because it's such a nightmare to get out. So this is the buffalo thorn on the left that we're going to try and avoid as you squeeze through. And we've got an acacia with long toothpick-like thorns and also some fresh green shoots popping out, another sign of the spring months. And Jeandré is going to have to squeeze you guys through there on his way past. I've just got another whistle from Stef, and I think he may have found some tracks of Sindile, just judging by the sign language he's given to me. Here we go, Jeandré, you can squeeze through here. It's very tricky business doing what Jeandré is doing, because he's focusing on the camera and where the camera is filming, and therefore each footstep that he takes, he may not know where he's actually putting it. So it's something that I can relate to after being the cameraman for Stef. And he just has to hope that we guide him on smooth pathways, otherwise he could literally walk down a hole. Ah, well done, Stef. Okay, this is awesome. Stef has done a great job here, and he's found us not only tracks, but also some dung of Sindile. So we've got a good idea of where he is now, so well done, Stef. And if you just come down and follow me into this little riverbed. Oh, got my bottom tangled there. Maybe even from there's a better option, Jeandré. I don't know if you can use the zoom. But here, you can see the track of the leopard, and what I may try and even do is use my flashlight to, I don't know if that helps. And you may be able to see the, so I'm trying to simulate the 2-toe, 3-toe, 4-toe, and the back pad. And a few more footprints as he's scurried his way through this riverbed. And if we continue along his pathway, which was up through here, we can find a very cozy little toilet that he used. And I'm going to leave Jeandré in there and then creep round, and we can see here very clearly where his footprints are, and this is some leopard dung. You'll see quite a little fur in and amongst this. It smells very, very ripe and terrible. It's the last thing you want to smell, the dung of one of the predators. And no shards of bone, and often you will see shards of bone within leopard and lion and dung. Well, good news. And again, thanks to Stef's beady eyes for finding these tracks and the dung. And now what we're going to do is try and follow up in this general direction. So come along. And that dung doesn't look incredibly fresh to me. So I think from earlier today, he may have moved during the course of the day. But at least now we've got a good idea of where this leopard has moved. He's moving in a northerly direction. And because of the setting sun, we're not going to try and follow each individual footprint now, but slip into leopard mode and try and imagine if we were him, where would we go? Imagine if we find him, it'll be so awesome. And there's certainly a strong chance that it'll happen. Now, good places for us to check as we move along here are any termite mounds. As you know, he does like elevating himself on termite mounds, and that's often where we find him. And because it is much cooler now in the late evening, he's not going to be worried about shade. If anything, he may want some of this afternoon sunlight to bask in. Come on, Madiba. Where are you hiding? It's always a tricky thing to balance the combination of looking up and around you, which is obviously critical, not only for the animal you may be looking for, but for any potentially dangerous animals that you are not expecting. But naturally you're inclined to want to look down to see if you can find any footprints. So I'm trying to balance the combination of looking down as well as looking up. And binoculars are such wonderful pieces of equipment to use, especially when on foot. I'm scanning across to a termite mound off in the distance. Doesn't seem to have Madiba on it though. but merely the fact that we're out here on foot, moving in the general direction of his tracks means that, like I said earlier, we've got a strong chance of bumping into him. And we've just got a question through from Mavis. Welcome on board the walk. And Mavis is interested to know whether we use walkie-talkies. Yes, we do. We don't call them walkie-talkies though, we call them handheld radios. That's the lingo out here. And this handheld radio has got me in comms with the game drive channel and all of the vehicles that are driving around. And this one here on my hip has got me in touch with the final control. So Nikki and Louise are on there this afternoon. And essentially they are the link between you and me. So very important radio on my hip. And I've got a small microphone which is popping out of my shirt, so I'm not wearing a dead mouse necklace. That's a little mic, and that's also strapped on to my hip. Oh, I wish we had some more time this afternoon, but I'm sure that's the case for a lot of us around the world. If only we had more time. But sadly, with the setting sun, we are going to have to continue out of this area, but at least we can update James and tell him that the leopard is certainly north of the small drainage line where he was left this morning. And maybe when James comes through this area on the way back to camp, he'll be able to pick him up with the spotlight, get those eyes reflecting, or at least we've got a better idea of where to start searching tomorrow. Happy to hear that you guys had an incredible sighting of those giraffe. It sounded so beautiful. Big open clearing and giraffes running. It's one of my favorite things to watch. It's so elegant and graceful, and it appears like everything is in slow motion, even though they're covering a lot of ground in a very short space of time. It's a great thing to watch, and I know I certainly don't think I've been able to show you that in my time here. And each we keep getting pleasantly surprised. This morning it was with that incredibly ferocious sighting of the fork-tailed drongos fighting. Couldn't believe watching that footage when I got back to camp earlier this morning. I'm glad some of you got to see that, whoever was on the sunrise safari. If you weren't on the sunrise safari, it's worth watching the highlights reel at the end of the show. Things to look for when looking for leopard or any animals really is not necessarily the animal itself, and you're going to be looking for just the twitch of an ear or the strange shape of a head protruding from a termite mound, a tail flick, anything that's out of the ordinary. But it's important not to focus too much on looking for the specific animal. And that's for two reasons. You very often are not going to be able to see them because of their camouflage. And when you are on foot, especially animals like leopard, they'll flatten themselves to the ground. And I've been in scenarios where I've walked meters, just meters past leopard, and seen them at the last moment and pretended just that I didn't see them, carried on walking. And they're so confident in their ability to disappear that as long as you just pretend you haven't seen them, they think that you haven't, and then you can return later with the vehicle. But their camouflage really is good, and that means that you don't want to be looking for, but rather slight movements. Well, here's some Impala dung. So certainly not what we're looking for, but the great thing about being out on a walk is there are so many clues and signs and smaller things to interpret and read into that it's important to know what animals are defecating and where, because that can help you to track down whatever you may be looking for. So there's some Impala droppings, and if I break one open, you will see that it's a very fine powder if I rub it between my fingers, and also quite good for showing you wind direction. So this is another thing you can do. Don't have a sock with ash in it. You can use fine dung from ruminants. And the reason why this is important to note the difference of the animals is it shows that Impala have got a highly effective digestive system, no different to a cow, a four-chambered stomach, that they can chew up the cud, regurgitate cud, so food that they've already chewed on, and re-chew it so that they make sure that they get every ounce of nutrients out of it. The elephants are completely different, and hopefully I'll be able to find you an elephant dropping without too much searching, and then you will see. I'm looking into this tree because I know for a fact that there will be many scorpions living within all the little cracks in the bark here. So I'm not going to put my fingers in, but there are a lot of cracks in the bark. On this dead stump here, there's quite a few cavities within the tree, and a lot of the scorpions that live in this area live in these trees. After dark, if we came with our UV black light, which I do have, we'd be able to see them fluoresce and glow. But for now, they'll be hiding. But couldn't resist the temptation of having a brief look around. Sometimes you get lucky and you can actually just see their pincers sticking out the entrance to their burrow. I can hear a red-crested cron calling off in the distance. It's a bird that we're definitely going to be able to show you. Is the call that they will ring out. And that is before they do their incredible display flight, where they fly about 20 to 30 meters up into the sky and then just stall their engine, tuck in their wings, and they tumble down, and at the last moment, whoop, they open their wings and fly off. It's quite an awesome stunt. And that's what they do to impress the ladies. And the fact that we're beginning to hear their calls more frequently is a good sign that we'll be able to probably to show you that incredible mating display. Apologies for some moments of shaky signal, but I think this is one of the best walks in terms of the technicals. There hasn't been too much breakup or too many issues, so this is pretty awesome stuff. And we want to, as much as possible, be able to incorporate you in this adventure. Because I'm sure a lot of you may be sitting on the edge of your seats. My heart is certainly beating a little bit faster than it would be if I was driving around. Because the thrill of walking through this environment is something that a lot of you haven't got to experience, and we would really love to incorporate you more in it. It's by no means a hugely different experience being on the vehicle. We're not going to expect to get close up of Madiba. Finding him is what we hope to experience with and get the Okay, well, I think what the plan is that we're going to try and get up onto one last vantage point to show you the setting sun, and I've noticed a termite mound up on our right. So we'll go up there and send you back to James so that we can get back to the vehicle safely before it gets dark. for Jeandré to come here. There's a bit of a barrier. There we go. Okay, well, I'm going to try and find a little bit of a natural staircase for Jeandré to climb up the termite mound. All good there, buddy? Well done. Well, isn't this beautiful? We've got the sun setting in the background. I've got a glimpse of the Drakensberg Mountains. And what a great place to end off a wonderful afternoon on foot. Now I'm just going to get a hold of James quickly on the Game Drive channel and give him an update as to where we last saw the young moving. James for Scott. I'm hoping the Vulture channel, which he is. James, apologies, no luck, but we did find his tracks of that small drainage heading north. And that was quite recently, so I didn't have too much time to follow up. Well,
okay,
these are these important
Josh.
updates that we need to give. Let's see what to say.
Do you suggest I go Rebecca's days?
He's making the right call. Yeah, exactly. Good call. And good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, so sadly we didn't have any good news for him, but at least some information and clues which may help him find Madiba for the last little bit of the show. We're gonna say goodbye now and look forward to doing some more walking with you in the future. I think Brent's going to be leading the next walk, so that's something to look forward to because it's something that all of us are really excited about, and you're going to get to see some different angles and different styles of what interests us, especially the smaller things that we get to show you out here that are difficult to show from the vehicle where the camera is fixed. Anyway, off to the sunset and back to James. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Nikki and Tara. We will see you all on the next safari.
Hello everybody, welcome to this magnificent African sunset. It is so inspirational to see these sunsets every single day, especially on a crystalline, clear afternoon like we're experiencing now. We are not far from where you just seen Scott. He's just up here, north in the block, where he was following Sindile, and I just had to come and climb this tree in the light of this golden setting African sun because I was inspired so to do by the beautiful atmosphere that this whole afternoon has conjured up. Now our plan from here is going to be first of all to dismount with grace and then to head up this road here. This is called Rebecca's Road, towards Zoe's Road, which is another road north up here, and apparently that's where Sindile's tracks were heading. Obviously, as that glorious sun sinks below the Drakensberg Mountains, so it becomes, well, just not a great idea to be out on foot. So Scott will head home and we'll take over in the vehicle around about where he had the tracks. I'm very pleased that the walking thing seems to be working, which is excellent. It's obviously very helpful to us in the vehicles to have somebody on foot, because you can obviously walk where you can't drive. Right, I have re-plugged myself in. Is that not just the most magnificent sight? So beautiful. Okay, I'm just going to quickly put my jersey on while you watch the last embers of the sun. It's a little bit nippy, and Bryan tells me that there's going to be something in the way of a cold front coming through, but I can see, I mean, do you think that's smoke or cloud, Bryan? I think there's some smoke there, you know. Yeah. I think there are a couple of bushfires perhaps towards the mountains. I'm not sure what's burning after all that rain, but I think that's why we're getting such a gorgeous gorgeous sunset. Right, before young Madiba disappears too far into the hinterland, we'll go forward and see if we can't pick him up. Beautiful, hey? Right, so Scott was off in here. He was Madiba. I cannot bring myself to remember this animal's name. Madiba times 20 was in here just to where Bryan is pointing the camera, and then his tracks headed north from there, basically parallel with this road. And I believe you had a close-up shot of Madiba's excrement. How exciting that must have been for you. And of course, you've perhaps also seen us collecting their dung, which is very important for the research that is going on. It is astonishing to me how much in the way of dung we do look at out here, and how interesting we find it. So any time now I'm hoping to see the flash of little Madiba's tail. Now, a leopard, for those of you wondering, is possibly the most difficult animal to track. Well, I mean, probably a little bit easier to track than, say, a termite. But of the mammals that we like to see, very difficult to track because they are very light and they don't walk heavily. So, and the other, of course, important question to ask about animals on foot, being on foot, and around safety and around the animal's comfort, more importantly. And B. Wilson, you asked, will a leopard be, will Madiba be comfortable seeing people on foot? I've seen him on foot a few times. We've all have, actually. And what he does is he just pops his head up and he looks. As long as you don't approach him too closely, as long as you don't corner him, he'll be perfectly comfortable. But he will keep his distance. And a young male leopard is often the best thing to see on foot because they tend to be, I'm just looking at every termite mound because he does like to sit on termite mounds. They tend to be very curious. And so young male leopards on foot are often quite fun. They're a little bit nervous, so they will, be quite wary, but they don't slink off like their mothers do even before you see them. Quite often a female will slink off and you just don't see it, but the young males will stand up and look and see and have a look what you want, and then they kind of will back off if you approach them too close. But that should not be made, we should not mistake that, of course, for them being tame at all. So were you to truly corner him, the reaction would be fairly terrifying. So it's perfectly safe for us and safe for him as long as we don't corner them. So, New Hampshire, you want to know why there wasn't a vehicle close by for which that the walking safaris could run to. Joyce, first of all, there was close-ish by, and there in front of us you can see the team, and Stef was there as a security guard. He is carrying a rifle, and so it's pretty safe, but I will get into that a little bit once we've gone past him and said our hellos to the tracking team that unfortunately failed us. While they may have entertained you, of course, they completely failed to help us in any way whatsoever. Thank you very much for that.
Apologies, James.
Yes. Hello.
For failing you.
I am, of course, joking. People don't often know if I am joking. Where'd the tracks go?
They were probably about
150 meters, 200 meters northeast of that termite mound where he was left, and he was moving to a tiny little drainage line.
Okay.
And that's where Stef found the tracks.
Right.
And he deposited a parcel in
And he
that
did.
drainage line.
Very nice.
But it wasn't very fresh. There
Okay.
wasn't a layer of moisture over it.
Okay.
So probably from earlier today. And we just continued in this general direction that he was moving in, but didn't have any luck.
Didn't have any luck.
And with the fading light, we need to get
Head
back to the
home.
vehicle, which isn't too far.
Yes, it's just up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you suggest? Impala planes, maybe? Back down Triple M?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, almost if you just do the rinse repeat,
Rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the rinse,
but with more vigor.
Right.
Cheers,
As you
Bryan.
were.
Cheers,
Goodbye.
everyone.
Thank you for your efforts. See you later. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
So Joyce, just importantly, what's important for you to understand is that I'm not sure that anyone says it's unsafe to be on foot. It's not unsafe to be on foot. It's more, I mean, we wouldn't approach animals in the same way that we do on foot as we do in a vehicle. There is the vehicle, by the way, that they were walking from, so they're not far from it at all. But on foot, you are by nature immediately slightly more threatening towards an animal than you would be in the vehicle. We are the apex predator, and so animals are more threatened by us when we see them on foot. And this is the crucial thing to understand. It's not unsafe to be on foot. And indeed, part of my training was to walk an entire reserve of 15,000 hectares unarmed and alone. And that was so that I understood where we fit into the wilderness as human beings. So it really is important for you to understand, Joyce, that it's not unsafe. But if you're going to track animals, yeah, it's always possible that something can go wrong. So you do need to take safety precautions, especially if there's more than one person. And so, yeah, that's why we carry a rifle. There are lots and lots of areas of Africa where they walk in big 5 areas like this where they don't carry a rifle. And so it's just a choice that we've made as a company and for extra security. But I mean, the chances of ever having to use it are so small. It's not unsafe, but we just try and we just have to understand that it is when an animal becomes threatened that it becomes dangerous. And of course, that doesn't apply if you don't have specific training for this area. So while it's pretty safe if you have training in the area and that you've seen animals on foot and you know how they're going to react, I wouldn't suggest you popped over from New Hampshire and went for a walk out here, because if you did see an elephant or you saw a lion or you saw a leopard on foot, you might not know how to react. And for example, Joyce was saying, why is there no vehicle within running distance? Of course, the worst possible thing you can do if you come across a lion is to behave like an impala, and that is to run away. So it is important that you have the training to walk in the bush, and you develop the skills to learn use your eyes better and your nose and your ears just a bit more, and so that's very crucial. That said, there are places around Africa where you can still go. I know there are places in Zimbabwe and Botswana where you go in at your own risk. You can go and camp, and you can do what you like. And I think that if you're not prepared for that nicely, you're taking a bit of a risk, because you don't understand what will threaten an animal and therefore make it dangerous. So I say this, I bang on about this a lot. People say, well, what's the most dangerous animal? What's the thing you're most scared of? And the answer is that there's no such thing as a dangerous animal. An animal is potentially dangerous, and it becomes dangerous when it is threatened. And it's the key is to understand when that animal will become threatened. Yes, there are definitely anomalies, and accidents do happen. Certainly, we hear about them on the news from time to time, but that should generally be the approach. So we're just, as Scott said, he said heading northeast was young Madiba, and so we've come to the northeast of where they were. And I think quite interesting that the tracks, he said, weren't that fresh. Another beautiful skyline. Very difficult for Bryan because the vehicle is at odd angles all the time, of course. So what that means is that every time the vehicle changes angles, your horizon goes squonk. It's nothing to do with Bryan and everything to do with me. So we're just going to circle this block basically and see if the young chap doesn't pop out and say hi to us. Couple of bumps here, everybody. Lift your drinks off your laps. Now this is the road that we're turning onto here, is the boundary between Arathusa and Juma. Juma is 900 hectares, Arathusa is 600 hectares. They're not tremendously large properties by the scale of properties in Africa, or especially wildlife areas, but they are of course part of the larger Saudi Sands, which is 60,000 hectares, and that in turn is part of the greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, which is 8 million acres. Excusing me mixing my imperial and metric there, but I know we do have viewers from both schools. So of course a leopard moving through the block will also not be moving in a straight line unless he's marking a territory. And Madiba will not be marking territory for the next few years. So he'll be wandering around. I mean, you followed him with us, and you've seen how he moves around in different directions. And wild dog pup, as is your namesake, you would like to know, is there any news on the wild dog pups that were around and have been around? Wild dog pup, I haven't heard anything. I'm going to try my new trick. Brian, do you like my new trick? Are you quite nervous? You should be. I can't reach the brake. You want to know what's happened to the packs of dogs that gave birth. There were 2 or 3 around the area. Wild dog pup, I haven't had an update on them for a long time. I don't think that means that there's anything untoward that's happened. I just think that they move so far, and by now the pups will be running with the pack. So they won't be as localized as they were for those first few weeks while they were still in the den. I'm not doing this purely for the acrobatic nature of it, it's so that I can see over the tops of the bushes past which we are driving into the block where young Madiba was last seen. Thanks, Brian. See, I got it right. You'll notice I say every time I say Madiba, because I get this. I do not unfortunately see him sitting perched on a termite mound or dragging a diker into a tree. So we're just going to have a quick further chat on the lions while they are topical, of course, and while we don't have the young leopard to look at. Paul, you want to know, why do the lionesses not run away from the lions? Surely they must know or have the experience to just get away. Paul, It's an excellent question. I don't know, to be sure. You'd think they would have learned by now. They've lost 4 of their number to those Birmingham boys already. I suppose one of the reasons would be that they don't necessarily have anywhere to go. You know, they can't just disappear into another pride's territory, because then the fate that will meet them will be the same. They are very territorial, so they see this as their territory. And I don't know, you know, lions they're risk takers. They're far more prepared to take physical risks than many other animals. Hyenas are another group that will. And I think that's probably got something to do with that. Perhaps they don't realize the extent of the danger that they're in. But again, like you say, you'd think after the experience of losing 4 of their number, they'd have some inclination that the Birmingham boys were not after a Sunday afternoon cake and tea party. Good question, Paul. I don't know. In terms of speed, some people will tell you that a female lion is quicker than a male. I don't believe that to be the case, simply because the males are so much bigger. They're much bigger, and therefore their stride is longer. They're just as strong, so I don't see why on earth the females would be faster than the males. They might be slightly more agile, but in terms of top speed, I don't think they're fast. I think they're probably quite a lot slower. So, just on similar sort of topic is Sibusiso in Hammanskraal. Sibusiso, another great question from you. You do ask a lot of good ones. You want to know basically why doesn't it click in their minds? Same as Paul. Why doesn't it click in the Nkuhuma's minds that they need to head off and disappear? So, like I was saying, it's very important to understand that a pride can't just go into another pride's territory, because they will be beaten up there by the resident pride. And just to reiterate, a pride is not the same. The males are not part of the pride. They're a coalition that will dominate a number of pride territories, and that means that the females can't just disappear into another female pride territory, because they will be damaged. That said, they will cross borders. They will definitely expand their range and try and get away. And certainly where some of the Nkuhumas have been of late into Simbambili, they're definitely pushing on the far western extent of their boundary. And so that to me is quite interesting. I think they are trying to perhaps get away from the Birminghams, but they seem to be unable to shake them off. They're unable to just move out though. Their best bet is to be as submissive as possible to the Birminghams. And I mean, I think that's what some of them will try and do. Oh, let's just stop here and listen to the cicadas for 1 second. It's my favorite bug. Isn't that lovely? That's a cicada. And they're very ventriloquial. There's another one calling out close by here. Very ventriloquial. You find these things all over the old world. I don't know if you find them in America, in North and South America, but you certainly find them all over. You find them all over Europe, or Southern Europe certainly, and all over Africa. It's so cool. And they make that sound, everybody, they've got it's the males doing this. Copy, thanks. That was just Scott on the radio. So they make this noise. Only the males. The males are now singing, desperately trying to attract ladies after a year or a dry season under the ground on the roots of various trees, and where they will sit and they proboscis drill into the sap of the roots of the trees, and there they sit for the whole of the summertime, or the whole of the winter time. I think some of them probably just sit under the tree and don't eat too much. Anyway, I'm not sure what they do under the ground. But when they come out, immediately after it's rained, you can see they've come out of the ground, and now these males are looking for girls. Now how? When the middle of summer comes, this sound where we're sitting now will be so deafening that it will be a little bit like listening to a dentist drill being drilled into the middle of your skull. It can be so loud. How a female tries to discern who has the best song from this incredible noise all around us is always been one of the great mysteries to me. But I do love the sound, because it's such a sound of summer. It's getting louder and louder. And they make that sound, everyone, with a complex set of organs underneath the abdomen. And what it is, the easiest thing to liken it to is, I don't know if you remember the days when you had an old Coke bottle with a bottle top, and you could pop that bottle top. It goes, know what I mean, Bryan? Now, what they have is a membrane like that Coke bottle with a muscle attached to the bottom of it. And when they contract the muscle, it pulls it down. And when there's a dark here, I thought it was leopard. Never mind. When they contract the muscle, it pulls the membrane down and it goes, and then when they let go, when they release that muscle, it clicks up again. Now they just do that very, very fast, up and down, so that's a constant popping motion, and it's made louder by a complex set of chambers that they have in the abdomen, and that's also how they make it ventriloquial. They kind of move that chamber around, and so it moves the sound. Very difficult to find. It's almost impossible to find them. It's getting louder and louder still. That's so wonderful. Okay, Scott has just said to me he hasn't found anything, but they did hear a leopard calling. Now, I don't think that would have been Sindile. Well, it's unlikely, because given his age. Madiba. Sorry. Madiba calling. I don't think it was him calling, but they did hear a leopard calling, perhaps Shadow coming to fetch him. So we're going to head up into that area. Scott is around there having a look. So we'll go and join them in the area. Here we go. I will get it right one day, everybody. I just have to bludgeon it into my thick skull. Oh, what a beautiful evening. I'm so excited by the cicadas. They just conjure up an image to me of lazy summer days, either in the bush or at the sea. Sweltering heat, perhaps a gin and tonic, but not too many of them, of course. We won't be able to find one at night, everyone, but definitely as the summer progresses, we will be able to find them during the day. They will call during the day, and then we'll be able to find them. Oh, magnificent evening. That's where you saw us last. We've done full circle, as it were. Sorry, Scott, go again. Have you located? Okay, copy, thanks. I'm coming back up Rebecca's. I will take... Oh, you're going to drive Triple M? Okay, copy that. I'll see you there now. Alright, so everybody, Scott, like I said, has had some... has heard a leopard calling. Who it was, what it was calling for, we don't know. Just north of where we were, just north of where we saw them. And they're standing by there just to see if they can, if it calls again, And if it does, then we'll both try and sort of circle around and see if we can't find it. It is, of course, getting trickier as the lights disappear. Now, Brian, I'm going to attempt to switch on the lights that Viam fixed and you fixed today. Do you think they're going to work? 100%. 100%. Here we go. You're watching, everybody. The bush is about to explode into glorious light. Oh, look at that. Well done, Brian. Good job. Huh. Try and find a spotlight somewhere here. There we go. A very good point from Matt in the United States in Texas. Thank you, Matt. In fact, I did know this, but I'd forgotten. You do, of course, get cicadas in North America, and you get them there, some of them spending their larval, or it's not larval for a cicada, but instar stage, their immature stage, under the ground for 17 years. Yes, Matt, thank you for that. They don't spend that long under the ground here. It's normally about a year, the cicadas here. But absolutely, thank you for reminding me of that. The cicadas in North America, some of the species up to 17 years in their instar stages under the ground as immatures, feeding on plant roots. And yeah, exactly. Then they come out for a year. I think they die thereafter. Thank you for that, Matt. Mauricio, you want to know if I find the shells sometimes from which the cicadas emerge. Mauricio, I'm not really sure what you mean. Maybe they have shells in the US, I'm not sure. But sometimes you find the holes that they come out of. I've never found a shell as such though. Right, we're now close by to where Scott said he's heard that leopard calling. There are more cicadas here. Oh, I'll be so happy if I can find one. One stopped calling as we went past here. Normally hanging on the underside of the branches. They're not very big. Depends, I mean, you get different species of them. These ones, I think, are about ½ an inch long. Very cryptically coloured as well. I can't see one in there. Hear them all around us, and they'll stop calling when we go. If they think we've spotted them or getting too close, they'll just go pyoop, and they'll stop calling. So we're now exactly where Scott said he heard leopard. So perchance we shall be lucky. But regardless, it is just such a magnificent evening. I'm more than happy to just more than happy to just blunder around for a while and enjoy the sounds of the spring and that fiery sky. So Beachy, thank you for your comment that you love the sound of the bush. That's wonderful. I also love the sound of the bush at sunset, especially in summertime, when the heat of the day just cracks off and the glorious sounds begin, and the smells, of course. And then Ellen in Arkansas, you want to know, I mentioned my training. We had to go and do some walks, unarmed and alone. And you say, did we do a lot of training before that, before we were sent out? Yes, Ellen, we did do quite a lot of training before that. But then you say, so that we know whether to take an aggressive action against an animal, if it looks like it might attack. Well, Ellen, there's never really, well, okay, so if I'm, for example, if I am charged by a lion, so I stumble across a lion and it's on a kill, or it's a mother with its cubs, and she gets a fright and she charges. Yes, then you might shout, you might throw a stick just to deter it, but that would be the only kind of aggressive action that you'd take. With an elephant, you might clap your hands. You might clap your hands, but no. You know, in terms of aggression, Ellen, all of my training that I had was all about trying to make sure that we didn't threaten animals, so that they never felt the need to try and attack us. And that's the key to it. The key to living in the bush and having a good time in the bush is respect, is to live with complete and absolute respect for the animals that we're around, and to not treat them with any level of disdain. And in so doing, you can generally remain relatively safe. Hello, Scott. Nice to see you again.
Hello, everyone. Pleasant meeting out here.
Yes. What a pleasant evening.
Yeah. So, not much luck with any further vocalizations. We just heard two, one from Rebecca's Philemon's cut line, and then another one.
Really?
Yeah, that was where the first audio came from, and then the second one came from Ballinati's Zoe's, and it sounded like somewhere here. And all we've heard is the hippos at Sydney's Dam,
which is some distance from here,
and a hyena. So, not too sure what to suggest, but maybe you carry on and we'll keep listening.
All right, that'll be marvellous. We'll go up and parlour it.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Sounds good.
Unless we do Philemon's cut line, what do you reckon?
I think this side
is
a better bet.
All right, we'll head up there.
Okay, good luck everyone.
Thanks, Scotty. See you later. I was just smiling for Mr. Jeandré there. He was listening carefully to see if leopards are shouting on the wind. Leopards, a little bit like cicadas, can be quite ventriloquial, and of course if they're calling, they're normally moving. Very difficult to try and spot leopard tracks at night, but it's always a good idea just to have a quick look. I did see a bush baby leaping up ahead. See if we can get a bit closer. Here we go. tree there. Can you see him there? Look at him.
I've lost him.
He's there. He's in the middle of the spotlight. He's hiding behind the back of that terminalia tree. The little boy, there he is. Look at him. That's called a lesser bush baby, everyone. Or lesser galago. And he's just hiding from us. We found a nest. Well, Brent found a nest, and we tried to show it on the bushwalk camera this morning, but unfortunately the camera didn't play ball. We didn't find that any bush babies in the nest though. They live in little tree holes during the day, little groups of 3 or 4. And this is a primate. It's not a bear. It looks a little bit like a koala bear, but it is in fact a primate. Whoa! Huge jump. Similar family, I think the same family as lemurs. Similar. Not the same family, but it's a similar kind of a family. And that one has absconded. Right, continue our leopard search. Interesting question from Shannon in Ohio. Do we get mayflies here? Shannon, we do get mayflies here. For those of you who don't know what a mayfly is, I mean, it looks basically like if you weren't looking carefully, you'd think it might be I suppose a little bit like a dragonfly. But we do get mayflies, yes. Not in the same profusion, I don't think, as you do, but we do get them every so often. I've seen footage of them sort of choking up or covering cars, and when they come out in their huge emergences. And I think you'll find that it's the same with a lot of insects that you get where it's colder in the northern hemisphere. Sorry, Scott's trying to get hold of us. Go ahead. Go ahead, Scott. I'm just going to listen. I'm afraid all I can hear is bubbles going through Jiga's engine. So Scott said he heard some Impala alarm calling and a hyena cackling to the east of us while you look at the first star of the night. But as you can hear, I can't hear anything like that now. These are tricky customers, these leopards. I think we're just going to sit for a little bit. We're just going to sit here for a little while. We don't have a huge amount of time left. Was I blethering about when we stopped, Brian? Do you remember at all? I'm sure you shut your ears to my nonsense eventually. I forget what it was. Definitely can't hear any Impala alarm calling or hyenas. I'll just give you a sense of what I can smell though. There's no dust in the air. Scott is calling us. I think he's got something where we last saw him. This is really good. Copy that, on my way. Scott there, Sorry, Scrub here, we have greater priorities. So he's found a leopard. Well done, Scott! Try not to untangle myself from the radios, spotlight, earpiece, various other electronic paraphernalia that threatens to strangle me on a regular basis. Sorry, I didn't actually catch the animal. Sorry, it's not a leopard, it's a serval. That's even more exciting. This is fantastic. So we're going to try and go in here. What? Bryan, I'm so tangled up. Wires and things. So they are very rare spotted cats, everybody, but whether we can get in there or not before it runs away, I don't know, but I don't want to rush, because if we do, we'll frighten it away. It's right in front of their vehicle. Okay. Yeah. Oh, big hole. Oh, I can't see it. So apparently it was right here. They are so elusive, everybody. Golden, beautiful, sort of slightly larger than a house cat. Golden coat, beautiful black spots, black and brown spots. What's that? Oh, that's just a shadow. Alas and alack. I'm afraid, everybody, I don't think this is going to turn out particularly well for us. Keep trying for a little while, but they are not very confiding. No problem at all. Scott is busy apologising, but I mean, to try and stay with the serval is totally impossible. Back out of here, I'm afraid. There's a roundabout this area, and of course to sneak in a Land Rover without creating the sound of the apocalypse is not easy. I think we're going to call this quits. trusty little serval. Anyway, sorry about that, everyone. Sometimes it's your day and sometimes it isn't. We'll just gently drive along here. Not many minutes left of drive, I'm afraid. So I think we'll find a nice spot and then we'll have a little recap of the afternoon and of course the tragedy that befell the Nkahuma Pride in the wee hours of this morning. So servals are territorial like all cats, and I mean how long, I mean they will be around this area. I've seen a serval in this area before and I suspect it's probably the same one. Alright, so before we end off, oh dear, I've just unplugged myself. That's going to be very detrimental to my long-term career prospects. Stand by. There we go, I'm back online. So, for those of you who've just tuned in, and I believe there are a few of you who are wondering what exactly happened to the Nkahuma lioness, let me explain. So, in February, a lioness was killed by the Birmingham Bboys, 5 male lions trying to take over this territory. Then there was another one killed in, I think it was June, late June, on Torchwood, just to the south, to the east of us, and that was very sad. That was over a buffalo carcass. Again, the 5 male lions still trying to take over the territory. So they've been around, those 5 Birmingham boys, trying to take this territory now for nigh on 8 months. Okay, then another one last week, a young female, probably about 18 months to 2 years old, and she was killed not far from here by the Birmingham Boys. And then again last night on Simbambili, off towards where you can see the last embers of this beautiful day. She was killed last night at 3:30 around Simbambili. We don't know where the remaining 4 lionesses are, where they've headed. We don't know why the Birmingham Boys are doing this. It seems to be not uncommon for this area, but we don't really understand it. And we've had some wonderful discussion on it today, and I must thank you very much for stimulating, in my mind, certainly a lot of possibilities. Could they be sensing some of these lionesses are pregnant and therefore killing them? I'm not particularly sold on that theory, but it's not impossible. Is their blood just up? Are they so testosterone driven that any form of conflict is escalating into some kind of fatal violence? Maybe. Are they in some way programmed to control lion numbers? I don't buy that, but that's certainly what some people think. I don't know what's going on, and only time will tell. And we don't know in this area, of course, because in the Sabi Sands we have a great lion record. In the Kruger, or in a lot of other lion areas, we don't get the same amount of time around the lions that we do here. So time is going to tell, and this will be a really good research hub for the next little while. Thank you again for all your questions and contributions. It's wonderful to hear from you, and you are so stimulating to me, and I thank you very much for that. Thank you to Bryan on camera. Well done, Bryan. Bryan is now dressed in a number of remarkable jackets because it's got a bit nippy. And of course, thanks to Scott and Stef on the other vehicle with Jeandré, and Nikki and Louise in the final control. We will see you later on, well, tomorrow morning, in fact, for the sunrise game drive. Probably also only one vehicle. Thank you again. See you and good night.